So there I was in the movie theater with my $35 Foo Fighters shirt, and I really wanted to just enjoy the movie. And all of a sudden, this prude comes in and says, "Man, this movie is so puerile." Puerile! What kind of word is that?
Just remember, you're allowed to like things, no matter what anybody else says.
Puerile! Oh, God, no! God,
hello, everyone. My name is Anus McDickfart, and I am here to extend a warm welcome to critics ruining movies like the prude they are anonymous. Now, what you're witnessing here is a very unfortunate act.
Puerile!
This young man was wanting to watch If.
The voices speak to me.
He had read online that critics were not pleased with the film and calling it very childish. It's a kid's movie. The same thing happened with the Mario movie, with a lot of people saying that the story was just so jumbled and messy. Have you ever played a Mario game? Literally any of them. And of course, our most recent example of this, Deadpool and Wolverine.
Don't you understand, you baboon? These voices speak to me.
Let me tell you something. That 56 killed me when I saw it. I was worried, yep, Marvel ruined the one thing they had to come out this year, we should have expected it. But I also should mention that this has been a trend in critique recently, especially with these big old websites. Most notably with Metacritic and especially Rotten Tomatoes. They give movies unfair scores for unfair standards. With that, ladies and gentlemen and all in between, my name is Andrew and today we're taking a look at Deadpool and Wolverine. Before I get to the review, I have a lot to cover beforehand. The Deadpool movies, the X-Men movies, specifically with Wolverine, and Marvel as a whole. The Deadpool movies are strange. The first movie was important because it was a superhero character played by Ryan Reynolds, who, before 2016, was superhero movie poison. Not only was he in the third and definitely worst Blade movie, but he was also the subject to a pretty terrible Green Lantern movie in 2011. But like Chris Evans and Michael B. Jordan have showed, it's never too late for a second chance. Or in Reynolds' case, a third chance. And third time was a charm because he was a hit as the character. And I like the movie fine. I think it's funny enough, but heartfelt enough. Deadpool 2 in 2018 was also alright. It's directed by David Leitch, the guy behind Bullet Train and more recently, The Fall Guy. It's funny that I can say Deadpool 2 is one of his lesser movies because that just attests to this man's filmography. And now to Wolverine's side of things. The X-Men movies range from A-class superhero movies like First Class and Days of Future Past, to okay films like Apocalypse and The Last Stand, to Dark Phoenix, but a consistent factor in these movies has always been Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I'm convinced no other actor can play this character. Even after Jackman's long gone, I don't want another actor in this chair because even in the worst of his films, Jackman brings an edge to the character that just fits him perfectly. With that, the final thing I'll bring up is Marvel. They suck recently. Yeah, we haven't had many consistent bangers since probably Endgame. Exceptions are, of course, No Way Home, one of the best Spider-Man movies, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, no-brainer, and yeah, that's about it. That being said, this movie was said to be the Marvel Jesus, as very abundantly said in the trailers, and a legendary team-up of Deadpool and Wolverine. We are so back! This is probably on par with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Across the Spider-Verse, as not only one of the best recent Marvel superhero movies, but one of the best recent comic book movies. But as always, we got the good stuff and the bad stuff. You know the drill. Let's get to it. Deadpool, aka Wade Wilson, played again by Ryan Reynolds, has found life to be pretty okay. He tries to join the Avengers, though they turn him down, and he decides to give up vigilantism and live a normal life. That is until the TVA, as you saw them in the Loki series, takes Wade in, and a mysterious man named Mr. Paradox claims Deadpool could be the thing that the sacred timeline needs, but it'll come at a cost of his timeline and all of his friends, as he calls them his entire world. Determined to save his world, he searches for Wolverine, played again by Hugh Jackman, but the one from his universe is literally the Wolverine who died in 2017's Logan. In a lot of ways, Deadpool's universe is literally just the 20th Century Fox universe, including, of course, the X-Men movies. But he finds another Wolverine who's apparently a huge screw-up and a bum, and now the two must team up to defeat the common enemy, alongside a total psychopath named Cassandra Nova, played by Emma Corrin, and maybe, just maybe, save Deadpool's universe. Where do I begin? Well, let's start by saying despite it having been 6 years since Deadpool 2 and 7 since Logan, neither Reynolds nor Jackman miss a beat with their characters. I always was convinced Reynolds was made for Deadpool. He plays the character so well, and he has some of the funniest lines in this. Props to Disney for not just keeping this rated R, but going all in with it. it. The first two Deadpool movies didn't work because they dumbed it down. You saw everything. It was brutal, it was crazy, and they don't back down with this one. I was a little worried about Cassandra Nova. I'm gonna keep spoilers to bare minimum, but they do reveal something about her early on that I thought was gonna kill the chance of her being a good villain. But man, it is just nice to have a villain who does bad shit and doesn't feel the need to explain a dark past. They do explain a little about her, but it's short, sweet, and to the point. As you expect, the connections to the MCU are very fun and unique, especially the TVA. The director of this movie is a very strange choice. It's Sean Levy. Sean Levy got his start in the early 2000s with a lot more kid-friendly stuff, like Cheaper by the Dozen, Big Fat Liar, and of course, the Night at the Museum trilogy. But around the mid-2010s, he started making more mature projects. One of my personal favorites being This Is Where I Leave You in 2014. And then the 2020s hit, and this man went off with his creativity. Since 2021, he's had Free Guy, The Atom Project, and this. And while not all three of these are masterpieces, like, I'm not gonna tell you The Atom Project is a masterpiece, alright? But they really showcase the creative side of Sean's career. The reason I say this is because it feels like with this movie specifically, he perfectly feels comfortable in his role. Also, it goes without saying, the action is bloody fun. Like, dude, the opening fight scene alone had me hooked. I also like that they're able to tone down the silliness of the movie in order to get the more mature scenes in. Wolverine in this is a very tragic character, and they need to show that. Now, I do find it funny that outside of one or two scenes, when they do tone down the movie, Deadpool is just nowhere to be seen. Also, the soundtrack is perfect in every way, and I won't dare spoil anything about the movie's twists. This is a homage to comic book fans, but it ain't perfect, trust me. Here's the bad stuff. I can safely say there's less bad stuff than good. With that, to start off the bad stuff, I didn't like Mr. Paradox. I think he is very dull, despite attempts to make him an interesting character. This movie had a similar issue with specific scene pacing as Twisters did. I almost feel like 2 hours wasn't enough, but it does have specific scenes that just take too long. Or even have specific edit issues. Like the introduction to Dogpool, a dog Deadpool. That's funny in its own right. And they chose the perfect breed for this dog version. But the way she's introduced, there's a solid 10 seconds with no music or audio, and it's, I don't know, awkward. You know I'm reaching for bad stuff in a movie when a big issue is audio editing in only specific scenes. I think it's very fair to say this movie was going to take jabs at Disney for buying Fox. And man, when Deadpool said pegging ain't new for me, but it is for Disney, and then literally winks at that camera, yeah, I knew the Disney jokes weren't gonna land. That's actually an interesting thing. 95, maybe 97% of the jokes land. But Sean Levy always had this problem with his projects where if a joke doesn't land, it really doesn't land. Like in the trailer when Wade says it's a hair system and that cutie patootie Yukio says, "I love your hair system, Wade." God damn, I love you, Yukio, but that line doesn't work and you probably thought it would. But again, it really is only about 3 to 5% of the movie, and the 90-something% of it is funny, so I can't really complain much. Also, side note, fuck the guy who showed off the soundtrack and showed that it had The Greatest Show from The Greatest Showman, which also had Hugh Jackman. I'm not going to say how it's used, but man, my balls are blue from what could have been. The biggest issue overall is that the story is a bit messy. Like, they really needed to slow down more and explain and flesh out stuff. But I also argue these guys were behind Quantumania, so stories are clearly not Marvel's interest right now. And when they focus on the action, it is really good and overshadows the story problems. And that's really all I got. Anyways, this is a fun movie. It doesn't need to be deep and serious, but when it is, it does it right and creates a very believable character in both Deadpool and Wolverine. The story is messy and some of the jokes don't work, but it's the first time in a long time that I have ever laughed and laughed hard at a movie. The smile never left my face. It's a perfect homage to the movies of future past and the characters Fox helped us love and the Fantastic Four. I don't know why Fox brought those movies up, and so help me God if Marvel messes it up. Deadpool and Wolverine might not be a perfect movie, but it's close enough to a perfect comic book movie. Let's fucking go. Man, I'm glad movies are getting better this year. It took them long enough, right? About halfway through the year. What's going on in August? Fuck!